Hey everyone, it is Tuesday, February 13th, and we're working through this book, Quest 52 by Mark Moore, to help us understand some big questions by looking at the scriptures. And the overall question for this week is, if Jesus was perfect, why was he baptized? And the specific prompt we have today for day 2 has us look into Numbers 13 and 14, which is a story from Israel's time wandering in the wilderness. In Mark's essay from this chapter, he talks about how the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness and his response reversed the failures of his people by Jesus embodying the entire nation of Israel and accomplishing what they should have done in 40 days, but it took them 40 years instead. In the Old Testament story, we see 12 spies who went to explore and assess the prosperity of Canaan, which was the land God promised to the Israelites. And this was before they had taken it, of course. And while 2 of the spies were pleased and looking forward to obtaining such a thriving place, 10 of the spies became fearful about taking the land from the powerful people who lived there at the time. They doubted God's promise and spread their skepticism and anxieties to the majority of the Israelites. And this led to the huge delay of receiving God's promise. It went from 40 days to 40 years. So our question today, connecting us to Numbers 13 and 14, is simply, where do you see yourself in this story? In the 2 who had great faith, the 10 who feared and held others back, or the crowd who followed the words of the doubters and refused to obey God's direction? Well, honestly, I can think of a lot of times in my past that I've been on the side of those who missed the mark. I have formed an unfortunate habit of raising skeptical questions when things seem too good to be true, which can lead to analysis paralysis, which suddenly makes it really hard to move forward. And I would say maybe that's just being extra critical of myself, but I think it's probably likely that a lot of you would admit you tend to do the same and let your fears take over when you can't see how God will overcome obstacles. But just to encourage you for a minute, with the gracious help of Jesus, I have grown in my faith to push back against those doubts to the point where now that God has brought me out of those times, I can almost laugh at myself. Like, oh man, if I had just trusted God and taken a step forward then, but I had to drag it out. Friends, it is a good thing that God is faithful, and he can still shape me into the image of Jesus just as he can with you to respond his way, leading with faith over fear because of his perfect love. Please feel free to share your answers to this question with us, and we hope you'll continue this quest for Jesus with us this year and this week. But until next time, friends, you are sent.